A day after a massive blast in Beirut, Lebanon is dealing with pressure on a health system already overwhelmed by COVID-19. At the same time, the food supply is threatened. 80% of food is imported and it arrives via the port that's been destroyed. As an investigation begins, there are questions about how and why highly explosive material came to be stored at a harbour warehouse. More than 100 people are dead, thousands injured, and hundreds of thousands are homeless. An Associate Professor Nasser Yassin is in Beirut at the city's American University. He's the Interim Director of Issam Fares Institute for Public Policy and International Affairs. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us. I'm sure you were shocked by the explosion. Can you tell us your personal experience? What were you doing yesterday when it happened?
I was outside Beirut. I left Beirut for an area around 25 kilometers from Beirut in the mountain area, and we heard the explosion. And, you know, even 25 to 30 kilometers outside the capital, overlooking the capital, we've heard it very clear. We thought it was in the nearby. And then we started to get the news and messages and following with family and friends. And then we realized the extent of this explosion. I lived as a kid the civil war in Lebanon in the 1980s, and then experienced and witnessed a lot of assassinations, Israeli attacks on Lebanon. And I haven't seen something of this size, of this degree of destruction and the massiveness that this explosion has caused on the city of Beirut. This is beyond any imagination that we have thought of, and it comes at a time where the country is going through one of its deepest economic crises, a political crisis, and of course trying to cope with the COVID-19. So a lot of things are going to be adding to the hardship of the Lebanese in the coming weeks. And I don't trust the current political setup, the current government, the parliament will be able to cope with this.
Well, Professor, what's your understanding then of how this blast happened, and why do you think something so dangerous as ammonium nitrate that we were talking about earlier was stored without safety measures?
I mean, that's the question all of us are asking now, and we need answers. We need real accountability this time. Now, what triggered this, we don't know, but we know for a fact that there's huge negligence and irresponsibility of leaving thousands of tons, around 2,800 tons of this explosive material in the main port of the city. Imagine this is the main harbor where a lot of the trade comes in, imports of food, 75% of the imports come through this port, and then you leave it in such way. I think this time we as many Lebanese are asking for accountability. We need to get answers of why these such material were left in the warehouse, why there's such bad management of the port, and why the political and the government and the political authority haven't been tackling this since 2014. I mean, that's in itself is catastrophic from the side of the government. And now what triggered it, we don't know. Well, there's an investigation taking place, whether it was deliberate or not. But again, this act of negligence and irresponsibility needs to be, someone needs to be responsible for this. And I think the whole government needs to be responsible for this and answer the question that people are raising for the last hours. There's a lot of sadness among the Lebanese, but there's also anger of what happened, of why this has happened. And this, comes at a moment when last October, thousands or tens of thousands of Lebanese took it to the streets demanding more accountability, fighting corruption, better management of the economy and the state. And here we go with this massive disaster that looks to be man-made and looks to be an act of negligence of huge scale by the administration or by some people in government.
Indeed, Professor Nasser, there are a lot of questions that need to be answered. And you mentioned that the current government will not be able to handle the aftermath of this explosion. But Beirut's governor now says that 300,000 people have been left homeless. So then what's the road ahead for the city now?
The harbor, the port area is almost totally demolished. Really sad. This as if this was hit by an earthquake or something very major. Very sad to see the images this morning.
Well, we do apologize. We have lost our connection there with Associate Professor Nasser Yassin from the American University of Beirut, and he was recounting to us his personal experience of when the explosion in Lebanon happened.